Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Brandeburg. I'll be talking to you today about this work that we did based on my idea for using AI to help enhance reviews of mailing lists. So patches on the mailing list and making comments and doing AI things. So I'll talk to you about what we did and how we came about this idea. Today we'll talk about a little bit of an intro. We'll go through the problem that we found and what we were looking at and the proposed solution that we came up with. We'll talk about, or actually I'll talk about the benefits. I say we because Kamel and I worked on this paper together. Kamel's may be remote, we'll see, but he's in a different country right now and on Intel sabbatical. So it's just me presenting. The solution that we came up with and some of the results, we'll show you some quick results of some experiments that we did and some potential future work, and we'll have some time for questions at the end. So who are we? I'm Jesse. You can pronounce my name Jesse. I go by he, him. I'm 31 years at Intel. My focus has been working on enabling Linux for drivers for a really long time in the Ethernet space. So you may have seen me around on the mailing list doing lots of reviews and making lots of comments for people, sometimes trivial and sometimes not. I love working on Linux. I'm a big fan. I do a lot of technical development of our staff, helping mentor and lead people and help them in their careers. I'm also a performance guy. So I spend a lot of time doing performance. I look at patches in that light when I'm reviewing code. For fun, I like to do almost anything with driving, and you can come talk to me about cars if you want to. I like to work on my cars, so I'm a bit of a mechanic when I have the time. And I got 2 girls at home, and I've been married for 26 years. So what about Kamel? He is one of our validation team, and he's a recent principal engineer at Intel. So I've been a principal engineer a little bit longer than him. The idea of his focus is he really wants to use technology to help enhance our work. So in his work, he's doing validation. He helps us in development make better product, as well as cool things like this. He's also been working on, and he used an acronym here, this software development lifecycle, right? And he's been trying to use a bunch of new methods, and including AI and other things to help our business go faster. For fun, Kamel likes to do aquatic sports and diving. So if you want to talk scuba with him, anytime. Why would we want to use AI to do review? You might think AI is a buzzword, so I could just say AI and I'll see you later. No, but we're not going to do that today. We're going to do a little better. We can use AI to help us, and it can be a tool, right? It's not just about a buzzword. It's about using a new tool to do things that may have been very hard or almost impossible to do with programming. And so we have these open source projects, and they rely on community contributions. In this case, what we were trying to solve was, or I've noticed, and I wanted some help with, reviewing patches. We are working on the mailing list all the time. You're looking at code. You have people coming in from every direction with every type of skill set. And as Andrew talked about yesterday, they are sometimes bringing the same problems. Sometimes they don't read the documentation. And I wanted to stand up yesterday in Andrew's presentation and say a computer can help you with that, right? The boring stuff. I don't want to replace people at all, but the people are overwhelmed, right? We see 2,500 messages a month on Netdev, 10,000 plus messages a month on LKML. A computer is better at reading these and doing simple things that can be repeated over and over again in the same way. So a lot of reviewers' time is wasted when they are distracted by little things, like your indenting's wrong, your comment style is wrong, you have reverse Christmas tree, right? And how many times have you seen those comments on the mailing list? And it's the same people. So now you have senior reviewers, people like me, people like Andrew, who are having to go and write a message, typing out with their fingers, hey, will you please fix your indentation? For the 7,000th time on the mailing list, right? It gets really tedious. I'd like to help fix that with this method. TechPatch is good. I love it. Sometimes I hate it. I don't know if you guys had run TechPatch, but it works pretty good for what it does. But it's horrible at adapting to different code and having any context. So it can tell you when you've done one line wrong, but it's not really great at telling that, this function is too long, right? That kind of thing. What do we do for a solution? This is kind of where we get to the meat of the presentation. We use a large language model like ChatGPT. In this case, we use ChatGPT 4.0. We started feeding it a set of rules to make it into a reviewer that is an expert at making comments about simple things. So we actually took all the documentation that is written in the kernel and my experience on Netdev and some other people's as well. And we used that to write a big rule set. I think we were around 30 rules of statements where we were kind of trying to tweak and limit the scope and what it's looking at so that it's not just, making stuff up. We don't really want AI to be just, blowing smoke at everybody. The rule can look over an email and ingest it and do the simple replies in a consistent way and providing common feedback for users who are maybe posting for the first time. Maybe they don't pay attention or they don't care, but the replies come back nonetheless. So this AI bot or helper or whatever you want to call it will allow, the whole idea is to allow somebody like me to spend more of my time not doing the simple stuff and paying more attention to the code, right? And if I know that something else is going to pay attention to the simple stuff or someone else, then I can trust that it will do that and I can pay attention to the other things. So when I know that somebody when I know that someone else is going to always reply on the simple stuff, then it frees me up. And I like that. And I'm hoping that we could use something like this tool to do the same thing on the mailing list. And I know a lot of people would probably be very wary, but my whole idea is I want to be as efficient as possible when I'm working, right? And new tools help me be more efficient. And so I'm looking at this AI stuff as a tool to make me better at my job. And I will benefit the community more if I'm looking deeply at the code flows and using my experience and knowledge and context and history that is the human part that I bring to the equation instead of having to spend all my time doing the simple stuff. I know I've beat the death to that point now. So the other thing is that people, when we started looking at the data of looking at the mailing list, people get inconsistent responses even on the simple things. So sometimes a patch comes through and it's completely wrong and it gets committed anyway, right? Like it doesn't have the subject in the title of the patch isn't correct. The commit message is horrible, right? And maybe someone commits it anyway. That's okay, but we could do better. So what did we do for our experiment? We tried to build some experiments that would let us see if this thing works. And we tried to compare it to real people replying as they were working through their as they were working through their reviews and postings on the mailing list. For AI versus legacy automation. So I know that this slide's a little bit small, but we have the really big screen, so it's helpful. How these little images in the corner, you can see kind of the legend where there's an AI message and maybe an author message. You can get feedback that can, from the AI, that can actually make suggestions or offer help. So oftentimes reviewers don't do that. They say stuff like, hey, will you please fix this? Right? Or, hey, can you go read the documentation? Please don't submit during the merge window, to NetNext, right? All these rules that are really common. So these comments that we have coming back from the AI that you see with the little AI circle head, right? The robot head, it's giving feedback based on the rules that we gave. So, like in the first example, resubmit 3 is not a standard prefix, right? okay, that's not perfect, but it was getting the point across and it was in the patch thing. So that one's probably, iffy. And that's all right, but it's giving good feedback in human readable language, which is nice, right? So this is something that is an example of what CheckPatch can't do very easily, right? The feedback can actually help enhance the messages, right? We can have messages like the explanation is too brief and lacks details, right, as to why you were making the change. I always ask for that in commit messages. When people put up a commit message that says, title, fixes bug, commit message, fix the bug and blah, blah, blah. No one wants that commit message, right? We got to understand some context about the bug, why it happened, how to reproduce it, all these other things. Large language models are super great at reading paragraphs and understanding what they were trying to say. And they can give feedback about even looking at the patch and give feedback to the author saying, hey, your patch looks like it fixed a bug, or your patch was changing some code in a function that you didn't mention in the commit message. These are all pretty easy things for a large language model to do because it's not necessarily being particulars about the code or having history and context. It's looking at the language of the submittal. So I think it adds value in that space. The other one that's really hard to write good programs for that aren't AI programs is the thing about imperative mood, right? We want our commit messages to be in imperative mood in the Netdev space. And there's lots of comments on the mailing list. Hey, please rewrite your commit message in imperative mood. That a program that can interpret text like that is way harder to write and have it be good than having a large language model analyze this, because it understands the instructions of make sure that the commit message is in imperative mood. And like I said, it's really nice to have the AI actually be able to offer suggestions or help back to the user automatically. And oftentimes these can be links or instructions, or even a possible rewrite of your commit message if we choose to have it work that way. Part of this idea is that I wanted to have something how the AI could actually assist reviewers. And it should be part of the review cycle for a human that they're like, I want to shop this off to the AI, or I'm going to have it run as part of CI and give feedback immediately. So we'd like this to come. And in fact, we've been running this internally on our GitHub reviews. We have CI that gets triggered and runs a large language model program like this and gives feedback to our GitHub pull request and gives us, tells us, oh, what, you messed up the basics, right? That kind of thing. So having it work on trivial errors is the easiest and lowest bar. I think it's one of the most useful things because it gets rid of me having to make these simple comments. And you can then, like I said, you can have the human reviewer working on the comments, and you can see here the human reviewer in this case on this patch series was actually looking at the code and was suggesting that the user use Netdev error instead. We can actually have that be the comment that's made by the human and not have to worry about the simple things. In the case of simple rules like the fixes tag is missing, but you're fixing a bug, make sure it's targeting the right tree, all these rules that we wrote, that's where I think a lot of the value comes from for this proposal. And you get really nice, quick replies. So we hope this is really useful because now you can sort of reliably think as a submitter, oh, within the 48-hour window, someone will always reply to my simple comments and make sure that I can commit those and fix them and send my Rev 2 after waiting the right amount of time. And I would hope the AI would actually add a little hint, PS, please don't post your next revision before 48-hour timeline has passed. So we're not violating that. If you do have a question, you're welcome to pop up. I'm moving through this pretty fast, so make your way to a mic and ask a question if you have something you'd like to ask about. We did some experiments and we looked at the results of running. We actually used an AI to help look through our mailing list and make the suggested changes. And then we compared those results against the real replies that were on the mailing list. And I got a question, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I have a question. Did you consider hooking this to the Git hooks before the mail even got to the email list? Just at the Git committing hook piece.
Yeah, absolutely. You can end up turning this on, like as a user, you could run it yourself very easily. When and if we have the time to finish the paper and upload it, which I'm really hoping that we will because it's mostly done, we have some of the rule sets mentioned in there, and you would be able to probably use those to actually, if you have an account on ChatGPT or even a free account, you could feed your patch into ChatGPT, say, these are your rules, here's my patch. What would you say? Right? And you could totally hook that in Git. Actually, this presentation isn't about the technical implementation of it. It's more like ideas of how we might be able to put it and where. It could go into NEPA. It could go into some other thing that we managed internally and just provide it as a service, right? That kind of thing. I would hope that one of the cloud providers would volunteer some CPU time, or one of the AI companies would volunteer some CPU time, realizing that they're running and benefiting from Linux, right? Maybe as a give back to the community. I would love to see something like that happen. What we found is that the AI, when it was looking at the results, so we actually had the AI, a separate AI program, compare our AI program's comments, so the reviewer comments from AI, to people reviewers. And we found that the AI was pretty wordy. No big surprise. It also responds the same way every time, which is a useful thing, and it tries to help the users adhere to the guidelines. So it adds that consistency, repeatability, and it was providing suggestions much more than the human reviewers were. Sometimes it hallucinated, right? If the patch was really tiny, or if the commit message was really little, or if it didn't have enough context, you could see it make a mistake. And we saw it occasionally, not very often. One example was it found some code in one of the patches where it was like, have a define with a negative number is like a really rare thing that's not an error code. And I actually posted the list about it based on the AI's feedback, and found out that code was perfectly correct. But it didn't make sense as a reviewer when I'm reviewing it without context, and the same thing screwed up the AI, right? So I was confused as a person when I read that code. I'm like, why? Is that a bug? A typo minus when it shouldn't be there, etc. But the code was designed to use that, so that's okay. But it was great feedback for me because it was nice learning, right? And it's a good learning for the AI too, right? You can actually refine your rules over time and make them better. What we did find when we were looking at the humans' comments is there was a lot more coverage of technical and specific issues. And that's exactly what we want people to be doing, right? People are really good at providing that context, history. These things are almost impossible for an AI to do, or an AI program. And they can also look at the code itself and figure out how it fits together. And we were not taking the large language model and uploading the entire Linux kernel source and saying, apply this path. So if that's not being done, then you're not looking at it in context, right? You're just looking at the content of the patch with the plus and minus 3 lines extra code. However, the replies were all over the place. Like I said before, sometimes the replies were, very specific, and it kind of depended on the reviewer. So I really like this idea for having the AI provide those simple reviews, because then hopefully the reviewers are having the good time. And like you see in this picture, 10% of the time, the AI and the person were saying the same thing. Wasn't a whole lot, but it's a useful bit of feedback about like, what did we see from the humans? What did we see from the AI? Yeah, and the humans and the AI really repeated a lot of the same things when it came to formatting. So I feel like it was working. And to me, that's proof that they were, when you see the same results from both sides. The hope is we get better quality output at the end. I'm hoping. Yeah, please go ahead.
Back to you go back to the previous slide, are you
Okay.
saying that if there's only a 10% overlap, that your human reviewers were basically ignoring all the style issues for the most part, or am I just misinterpreting?
Um, we only
Like,
looked
I mean,
at it.
you said you were training the AI or instructing it to comment on certain style issues and things like that, right? So if there's only a 10% overlap, would that mean that the human reviewers were just not commenting on that and we're just kind
Yeah, that's what we found a lot of times is that the human reviewers were picking and choosing what they commented on. And sometimes they looked like they maybe were tired and they didn't want to didn't want to talk about the stupid stuff. And I've actually seen it on the mailing list as well. Sometimes there are people on LKML that are like, quit talking. They were like yelling at Joe Purchase, right? Quit complaining about the stupid stuff, right? And when there's people who are giving, and it's not stupid, it's a bad word to use. He was complaining that people are mentioning trivial problems when reviewing patches. And I understand why someone who does a lot of reviews would say that, but it also impacts the long-term quality of the software product when you go back and you look at a code change and you pull up the commit message and you're like, fix the bug. Oh, why did this line of code change? I need more context.
And maybe a related question: does it ever say "looks good to me" or not answer? Because in my experience, it's often hard in AI especially for language models to say "I don't know" and similar nothing.
Sure, yeah. I mean, what we set it up to do is if it had comments, it made them. If it didn't have comments, it didn't make them. And I wasn't really prepared, and I'm certainly still not, to have it add act or reviewed by at this point. That was not my goal of this whole thing, right? We wanted it to give sort of the repeated, for lack of a better word, negative feedback, right? The improvements needed message. So now you have a robot doing that instead of some person.
I think this is some great work, but I'm wondering, is there a plan to get human feedback to the AI where if the AI says something on the list that is wrong or isn't 100% correct, that someone's going to jump in and say, the AI is not right, this is the right way, before someone goes and fixes it and posts another patch revision that isn't correct because they got feedback from the AI?
I have no problems with uploading our rule set to a Git repo somewhere or posting it on my GitHub, or maybe Kamel can post it on GitHub in a public space where we can be like, here's the rule set. Hey, submit a pull request, tweak the rules, right? That's how you fix it, is the rule set needs to be slightly tweaked. And there was a bunch of places like 72 columns versus 75 and other little things. And I'm like reading the AI's replies and I'm like, no, right? So yeah, you absolutely need to tweak and follow up with tuning over time and certainly make it better. Add new rules, refine rules, say, don't be a goober. AI, right? Don't be mean.
Very cool. Thanks.
So did you compare the output against checkpatch? Could the human doing the review know that checkpatch is going to give a red light, the patch won't be accepted, so why comment on it anyway?
I think this is an added tool that doesn't replace checkpatch. It adds more context and ability to do things that checkpatch can't do. Checkpatch is fantastic at doing what it does. I don't want to replace that at all. There's no reason to.
Yeah.
We already have a working script and it runs as part of NEPA and it's right there.
I'm just trying to get at why did the human not comment? Maybe the human didn't comment because they knew checkpatch would comment.
They might have been, yeah, absolutely.
So I think comparing it against checkpatch might answer that question.
Sure. And then I know you do a lot of replies on the simple stuff, right? Trying to help people learn the process and things like that, right? I'm hoping to help alleviate some of that work for you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be useful. Just trying to understand the statistics.
Yeah, absolutely. Check patches are really important. He was saying he was just trying to understand the statistics here. And yeah, like I said, the AI is being very wordy and this is like measuring how many comments were made by each element, right? Humans made 30% of the comments, AI made 60% comments, and they were just in common for 10% on the replies. We looked at about 200 or 300 good messages that were on the mailing list. And in fact, I'll add one more point there that there is something that the AI could do that would be very, very hard. It's super hard for me as a reviewer to do, which is to go back and look at the previous revs of the patch series, especially if they're linked in the commit message, and see if all the comments were addressed. And point out to the submitter, you did not address this comment and you did not change the code in response to comment, right? Meaning that it would catch previous replies, see if they were responded to. That's an almost impossible task for me, right? It would take me hours and hours for every single series to go back and look at all the previous comments that I made. Sometimes you can tell right away that a person completely ignored you, right? But sometimes little stuff sneaks through because the reviewer's tired or you switch reviewers mid-series.
All right. We will allow.
Almost out of time?
We're almost out of time, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'll make it quick. First of all, congratulations on 31 years at Intel.
Thanks.
That's impressive. My question was, have you thought about maybe identifying some good reviews and throwing them into an LLM and see what happens, see if we can enhance this AI by human reviews we consider to be good?
You mean like helping train it better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. These large language models are not owned by us, so we were just using stuff that already existed that was, effectively already trained. So we were just giving it rule sets. I think you can certainly add to the rule set certain commit messages if you wish, right? That says this is a good commit, you love it, right? Or a good submittal. Is that what you were asking for?
Well, I mean, more deriving the rules themselves, right? So take your top 10 Linux reviewers who do the most, put them in and try to identify the patterns in reviews, because obviously, they're saying the same thing about different patches, but there's always patterns in how people perceive code. Use a loop here instead of recursion or whatever. So there's those subtle patterns that I think could be identified by AI looking through history of reviews.
I agree. And in fact, the rule set that we generated may actually be educational to some people or helping us fix our documentation to make the
next
rules.
question, please.
What's up?
Let me wrap up and we'll have to call it, I think, for the day because I'm just about out of time. So just before we talked about
I have a quick one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Will AI reply to spam messages?
Yeah, probably if it's to the mailing list, you bet. You've got to, your spam doesn't have any context and it has an incorrect title. You missed the net or net next tree, right? Yeah, but hopefully the spam doesn't have code content in it and it won't get committed by a committer who wasn't, in its deep attention. Yeah, it won't have a signed off by for sure or a fixes line. Not going to be accepted. So thank you everyone for your comments and coming back. If there's any further questions, you're welcome to look through the rest of the deck that is posted online. There's a few FAQs answered there. Things like, will this replace all of us as developers? Which I don't think so, because we need humans to be smart and do human things. We need AI to do AI things.
We need less humans.
No, I like the humans. Yeah, we want them. Thank you, Jamal.